Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today are two amazing people from the Microsoft team, Sally Ann Frank and Tim Gray. Sally, Tim, how are you today?
Doing well, thanks. How about you?
Doing great.
Doing great, Jared. Thanks for having us this afternoon.
I'm excited to have both of you here. Why don't we kick things off? Um, if you could each give a brief background on yourself, and then we'll talk more about the exciting things we have teed up today.
Great. So I'll go first. Sally Frank, I'm the worldwide lead for health and life sciences at Microsoft for startups. So we focus on early stage companies and helping them grow and scale.
And yeah, I'm Tim Gray. I am an industry advisor serving as the field CIO for our providers, customers here at Microsoft Health and Life Sciences. I'm a 26-year veteran of healthcare IT. I'm a former health system CIO and CISO, and just loving what's going on in the healthcare industry today and the possibilities of where we can go. So thanks again for having me here today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have both of you here. And Tim, I'm going to start off the first kind of kickoff to you. Talk us through Microsoft's, healthcare approach focus. I know a lot of people hear about what Microsoft is doing in healthcare. You have some great companies that are a part of your program, but if you could give us more information on that, Tim, I know the audience would be super interested.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, if you look at our company over the 40 plus years that we've been around, we've been in healthcare for quite some time. I would say, working from, the early providers and plans to life science, pharmaceutical companies. Um, in the more recent years, you might have seen some news around some of the investments that Microsoft's been doing in the healthcare space. Most recently, our acquisition of Nuance this past year, or last year, time flies. Um, and even more so, we've become laser focused on healthcare as it relates to subverticals of healthcare. When I talk about subverticals, I'm talking about the subverticals of specific providers in healthcare. I'm talking about the pharmaceutical customers. I'm talking about payers. I'm talking about health solutions and life sciences. So we as an organization continue to grow in the healthcare space. And we've even subverticalized, as I just mentioned, into these specific areas where we have dedicated people who are working on those specific subset customers within health and life sciences. Even more so, we're also bringing in a lot of industry expertise, and that's how I came to Microsoft. So, having worked in the provider community for all those 26 years, just about, I come in with a broad lens of that provider landscape. So, I think it's important to mention that because I think there's a lot of misnomers out there on how people look at Microsoft and our approach into the healthcare space. But with that said, we are using and leveraging our cloud technologies, and how we're going about it in the healthcare space is that we're aligning to the quadruple or now called quintuple aim of how we align our products and how we go to market. And for those that are not familiar with the quintuple aim, I'll give you kind of just a breakdown of that. So when we when we are developing and evolving our cloud solutions, we're geared them towards the things of improvement, such as the improvement of population health, which is a big top priority of healthcare in the U.S. today and now. We're talking about improving the patient experience, right? As you, myself, and Sally are probably consumers of some healthcare system, it's becoming vast and extremely important that consumers are having the right experience with their healthcare provider. So that's one of the things that we're leaning in on. Lower cost, right? Everybody talks about this in healthcare. That what are some ways we can continue to deliver outstanding care, but reduce the per capita cost of care. So that's another example. A fourth example is the clinical experience, right? How is Microsoft coming to the table and complementing things like big EHR companies with the experience of not only their clinicians, but their frontline workers, their administrative task employees, their financial rev cycle workforce. So we're bringing solutions and workflow efficiencies into those areas within health and life sciences. And then finally, I wouldn't say finally, but we also are helping to deliver solutions around our services and as it aligns to health equity. We also have a sustainability play as well too, where we're leaning in and bringing those types of solutions to our healthcare customers as well too. So we're not just creating products for the sense of creating products and just having platforms out there just for the sake of platform. We are aligning them to the things that the healthcare community is challenged with, trying to strategically stay at pace with, as well as some of the current challenges that are faced in our healthcare economy today and now. So from abroad, that gives you hopefully that gives you kind of an overview of how we're going after healthcare.
Thank you so much, Tim. And now
You
what I'd
bet.
love to do, Sally, is kick it over to you to hear more about the Microsoft for Startups program and some of these great companies that are going through and have been through this program.
Great, thank you. So think about all the things that Tim talked about as regards to how Microsoft is thinking about technology and healthcare and pharma and life sciences. And so what we're trying to do is focus in on those same areas, but through a different lens. So the Microsoft for Startups program, All Up, is really designed to work with earlier stage companies to help them grow and scale, both using our technology as well as taking advantage of our customer enterprise customer network. And so what we do is work with them through the program. We have a thing called Founders Hub, which is a massive portal with lots of resources and technologies that are available for the startups. And then we also try to give them access to unique tools that we have, for example, our API for Fire, our DICOM server, all of these things that are available on our Azure services so that they can accelerate the development of the technology that they're bringing in health and life sciences. And then we also want to look at them holistically. We're not just looking at the technology. And we think this is how we differentiate our program against others in the market. When we think about what we can do, we always tell our stories through the lens of our partners and our customers. It's not surprising to talk to people and go, Microsoft's in healthcare? It's like, yes, we are, but you don't hear about it because we put our partners and our customers first. So a lot of the areas that Tim talked about when we're talking about operational efficiency, when we're talking about patient experience, those are the areas that we're actively recruiting startups for so that they too can be part of our overarching strategy, which is in response to what the industry is telling us they want. So that's kind of the short narrative to it. But, there are a bunch of tools that are all of our Azure data services, as well as a bunch of things to develop solutions. For example, GitHub Enterprise and Visual Studio, and then some tools to also run the business. So Dynamics CRM, M365, which is Office and Teams, all of those types of things. And then we've recently added a bunch of partnerships like OpenAI, GPT chat and all of that, and DALI and Valley and all those things that are super cool, but also LinkedIn. So when you think about a small company and having to recruit, taking advantage of LinkedIn recruiting and jobs and LinkedIn's sales opportunities and Sales Navigator and all of those are the things that we're constantly adding to our program to make it more valuable for our startups that go through the program.
Yeah, and if I can just add, Sally, you bring up a great point about Microsoft and healthcare. I recently had the opportunity to speak at the Chime Fall Forum, and during the focus group, we were delivering content on automation and efficiencies in this transformational age that we're in. And at the very end of the presentation, my cohort, John, asked the audience, you came to this presentation today. Did you expect to hear this level of healthcare conversation from a company like Microsoft? And surprisingly, about half the people in the room, to Sally's point, were like, we had no idea that this was going on. And I think that's a big challenge for us, is that getting that word out there and sharing these wonderful use cases that we have out there and talking about some of the successes we've had are extremely important. And then secondly, what I love about Sally's program here at Microsoft is that they are aligning to the challenges that we're seeing here in the healthcare ecosystem. We're even getting asked, right, when we have strategic briefings with our customers, is, tell us a little bit about this program. We know that we rely on our EHR vendor for a bulk of our information. We're using Microsoft for another bulk, but there are some things that some of these next gen startups are coming to the table with are really helping to solve for challenges in our providers. So it's been flattering to, in one sentence, talk about the outstanding platform that Microsoft brings to the table, and then coming back and talking about some of the funded startups that we brought it in to solve some of these unique challenges and bring in some really cool solutions that really adding transformation to their business.
Let's talk about some of these companies, Sally and Tim. Can you highlight some of the companies that I know you're fond of all these companies you get to work with, but if you had to highlight a few, I know a couple of them, right, will be coming on or have been on our podcast, but would love to hear, give us some snippets of some of these companies, what they're doing, why it's important, why you're excited.
Sure. I'll start with a couple. So the first one, obviously, is Recuro Health, which Michael's been on your podcast before, looking at virtual health and proactive holistic health in kind of a new way. I love the work that they're doing and kind of breaking that break fix model that we typically think about as virtual care being, urgent care through a web browser or something like that. So love the work that Michael Allison and Michael over there at Recuro Health are doing. Also have a startup called Pangea Data, which is doing some great work in using AI to characterize patients for clinical trials or to highlight patients previously undiagnosed for certain conditions that can be treated and hopefully improve the health and improve the outcomes for the patients. Another one that I think you're going to be talking to is Vast Minds. They have the ability to use webcams and cell phone cameras to do biometrics. So blood pressure, heart rate variability, pulse, O2 saturation, and all of that things. And I will say that they don't use any facial recognition because that's not how the technology works that they built. But they are using our cognitive services, and it has a multitude of use cases that they're pursuing. Of course, one of them being healthcare. So those are a couple that I like. I know Tim's got a couple that he's passionate about as well.
Just hearing you speak about this, Sally, it's like when I look at the list of all the startups, I mean, it's hard to choose because they all bring just outstanding solutions to the table. But a couple that when I first started working with these startups that are still well ingrained into my mind are VitaTalk and RX Lightning. Um, and Sally knows this because she was there the day that I saw this with VitaTalk. It almost seemed next gen sci-fi, but it also hit home for me, and I'm sure it will hit home for others. The solution that they bring, and at a very high level, they bring voice to muted patients, and the ability to communicate when you can't verbally communicate um, through their solution. It was just outstanding. And if you've ever had a loved one that has been unable to communicate, whether intubated or going through a stroke or just whatever it is, just the inability to talk and express feelings and communicate, their solution has really helped to bridge that gap. And I'll leave it at that in case that they are a guest on your podcast down the road. But I don't want to spoil it for the rest of the community. But when I saw what they can do and how they can bring voice and communication to people that are unable to, it really moves you. It makes you proud to be working in the healthcare IT world when you're bringing this type of empathetic solutions to families and patients that are going through this. So I'll move on from from VitaTalk and RX Lightning. Again, another one that when I saw was just absolutely wowed by. Um, and so what they do, they help bring complex medications that typically take weeks and months to deliver in a fraction of that time. And so if you've ever been on a specialty medication, you just don't go down to the local Walgreens and CVS and drop off your prescription or e-prescribe it and sit in the little chair there and wait for it to be ready. Sometimes it takes up to a month and several weeks to get that. But with their solutions and their partnership, are able to deliver those medications much quicker. And what does that lead to? It leads to better outcomes, quicker recoveries. Again, things that are having impact on our society today, not just tech that's thrown out there for the sake of tech. So for me personally, those are the two that I beg Sally to highlight during this podcast. And then when we talk to more customers this coming year, I'll continue to raise my hand because, again, just having been in that ecosystem, it really hits home for me. And I'm sure as it will with others. So, and then we have, like I said, many others that if you look through the list, it's like, wow, just every time you see what these startups can do, it's just truly amazing. So
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Sally. Last thing for you. This is something I've been doing off and on. I can't say it's something I've done consistently, but a little lightning round, and in like 15 to 30 seconds, given Microsoft's interest in ChatGPT, ChatGPT recently passed, the medical exam, right? Is that considered cheating? Go. Because it knows everything.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's further work to do with Chat GBT. The technology is amazing. Currently, if you look at the Open AI, the Azure Open AI, and some of the things that have been done, and some of these other companies that use them, it's continuing to transform. And there's definitely when we start to apply it into the healthcare setting, we're going to see some amazing continued transformation and efficiencies with it. So I'm not going to say it's cheating.
Well, and I think I'd like to add, if you don't mind, that the value is when we have an opportunity to accelerate something that is labor intensive. So one of the things that I've seen recently is a demo of a doctor sending a letter to an insurance company to get approval for a particular procedure. And to have an automated process for that where you don't have to think about it and you just confirm that it's correct, or it can take the data from the chart and build it itself. That's great and doesn't make anybody uncomfortable, right? That's something that is, everyone can look at that and go, yeah, that's a really boring administrative task that gets done hundreds of thousands of times a day, and just think of the time saving that would. So I think we're more inclined to go that way initially until things really prove out.
And if I can steal 15 more seconds, Jared, I think it hits a wonderful point. When we look at our today's workforce, right? We know that in the healthcare, there's a lot more automation that can be happening that will allow our providers and clinicians to be working at the top of their license. We also know too that in about 5 to 6 years, most of our baby boomers are going to be at the age of 65 and older. So we're going to start to see a mass exodus from the workforce, right? We really need to accelerate these types of opportunities to Sally's point, streamline, automate these administrative tasks so that we have a better shot and a better opportunity to work with this challenged workforce that we're going to see here. And I can get into a whole generational conversation on this, but one thing to take away from this for all that are going to be listening is that we've got to step up and accelerate where we can and automate where we can. It's not going to get any easier as we start to see more people transitioning from working in the field to that stage of life where perhaps they're not working and on the receiving end of more care. So thank you for letting me steal a few more seconds.
Well, thank you both again for joining me on the Slice of Healthcare podcast, and can't wait to have you come back on again in the near future, as well as some of the companies that are going through your program.